Hello and welcome, fellow awesomeologists to Awesomeology. I'm Ben, and while I'm super excited to introduce our guests, I have to mention that this episode will sound a bit different, as we'll be without my world-famous co-host, Sue. I'm going to do my best to keep it awesome, and I'll have to try hard because Sue is definitely responsible for no less than 95% of the awesomeness that makes our podcast so great, so smart, and so fun. We'll miss her, but I know that she's enjoying some well-deserved time away from our busy work lives, and I promise she'll be back for our next episode for those of you that are going to miss her, which is all of you, I'm sure. Now, on with the show. In this episode, we're happy to welcome Lois Kitch from CU Difference and our very own Katy Zaleski from Simplicity Credit Union to talk about their upcoming adventure as they prepare to climb Africa. Welcome, Lois and Katy.
Thanks, Ben.
Good morning. We're both excited to be here.
Yeah, definitely. We're so excited to have you. So before we start and we dive in to this big adventure you have coming up, let's get to know you a bit more. And why don't we start with Lois? Lois, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you're up to nowadays, and then maybe give us a 30-second elevator speech about what Climb Africa is all about, and we'll dive deeper into that later.
Okay, so good morning again. My name is Lois Kitch again, and I am the co-founder of a consulting organization called CU Difference. And CU Difference is really designed to help credit union professionals recognize the opportunity in serving all of their membership, including low-wage working families. I have been doing this since I left the National Credit Union Foundation in 2018. My career over credit unions spans about 42 years. And if I talk about all the things I've done in credit unions, that's all we would talk about. But some quick highlights, I think that I have probably am most known for the role I played at the National Credit Union Foundation as the executive director of the Development Education Program, or the director of DE. I also have experience working with the World Council of Credit Unions, Filene, and working within credit unions. So all of that has led me to this volunteer work that I'm doing right now for ACCOSCA. ACCOSCA is the Pan-African Trade Association for Credit Unions, which means 28 of the countries across the continent of Africa. Incidentally, there are 54 countries in Africa. Oftentimes people think Africa is a country, and I say, no, it's a continent. Remember, 54 different cultures, 54 different governments, 54 different credit union movements. The idea of Climb Africa started about 18 months ago when we recognized that access to quality education for credit union professionals was sparse across the continent. So Climb Africa is meant to be used to build out the first ever state-of-the-art training facility, or academy as we call it, for African credit unions. And the ultimate goal is to raise $1.2 million to secure an office space, the build out of office space, curriculum, and the development of a research institute for African credit unions. We're making great progress. We're not there yet, but we are making good progress towards making this African dream come true.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for the great introduction and the teaser for so much great information about Climb Africa, which we'll jump into in a bit. Katy, why don't you tell us a bit about who you are, what you're up to, and maybe how you got connected to Climb Africa?
Yeah. Good morning. Or afternoon, I guess, depending on when you're listening to our podcast. I'm Katy Zaleski, and as Ben mentioned in the intro, I am at Simplicity Credit Union and have the privilege of working with Ben in my credit union career, and then working with Lois in our work in Africa with credit unions, or SACCOs in Africa. I'm the VP of Human Resources at Simplicity Credit Union. So in my day job at Simplicity, I get to champion professional development and really finding amazing people who want to work for Simplicity and enjoy working at Simplicity like we do. So professional development and making sure that we're taking care of all the awesome people that work with us is what I get to do on my day-to-day job, which is exciting and amazing. And Climb Africa as Lois said, kind of started about 18 months ago, and was this dream and this idea. As I mentioned, professional development is something that I am passionate about, and I'm fortunate to champion and work with at Simplicity. So when we talked about, or when Lois talked to me about Climb Africa and building out an academy and a resource like that for SACCOs and credit unions in Africa, it was a yes. And then, wait, what are we doing? So Climb Africa came kind of through the work that I've been doing with Lois and with George and the ACCOSCA team in Africa. And that started, as Lois mentioned, she oversaw DE, and I had gone through DE in 2016 with Lois Kitch. And so in that class, she talked about a first ever international DE workshop in Kenya. I hadn't even graduated DE at that time. And I called our former CEO, Pat Westenberg, and said, hey, there's this trip to Africa. I really want to go. What do we need to do to get me to go? And she said, well, graduate DE first, and then we'll talk about it. So that's kind of how my relationship with Africa started, and my involvement with Africa, attending that DE workshop. And then since then, I've been privileged to attend workshops, do development work, and then also work with ACCOSCA on professional development, and working with SACCOs and credit unions on operating principles and the philosophies of credit unions. So it's been a whirlwind. It's crazy to think that it's been every year since 2017, and then I'm gearing up in a couple of days for my 7th trip to Africa. So.
Excellent. Awesome. Clearly some passion in the room here for Africa and all the development efforts over there. And it's awesome to hear everything that you guys have done and are doing. And to that point, why don't we dive a bit deeper into this Climb Africa thing, and we'll kind of follow the flow of the who, what, where, when, why, how, and maybe let's start with the why. So Lois, you kind of teased a little bit or mentioned the academy, like the end goal of what these funds are going to do and what they're going to be created. Can you talk a bit more about, how the need was identified, and then maybe once this thing exists, like what's it going to do for people?
So thank you for that question. It's so the Climb Africa whole idea again came because we recognized that access to training for credit unions was really critical in not only building institutional strength so that the SACCOs, we call them SACCOs in Africa, are safe and strong and that members' money is protected, but also the recognition of building the financial capability of members is part of their mission. So at ACCOSCA, we spend a great deal of time measuring and balancing the business opportunities that happen from running a well-run credit union that also enables social opportunities such as living the values that you have within your institutions. And so that has been the role here of recognizing with so many different countries and so many different levels of sophistication in credit unions that there needed to be a central place of information and sharing, also a convening place, a place where people could come and not only get reliable information, but have an opportunity to meet and discuss issues that are important to the continent. So in doing that, we had the opportunity to really start and talk to some American credit union professionals about this idea, and got some strong support and kind of a go-ahead to push forward and actually start this, to work out to build this whole concept. The outcome of what will happen here is that there will, first and foremost, through the Research Institute, be reliable data, which Africa does not have right now. We don't clearly understand for sure how many members are part of credit unions. We don't clearly understand who our members are. We don't clearly understand the regulatory environment in every country. So part of the work that the ACCOSCA Academy will do is also to enhance the work of convening regulators to build out solid regulation and create a regulatory environment that is enabling, but also strong enough to support strong credit unions. We'll also be doing a lot of work with credit unions to help them look beyond what's happening inside the institution to the greater community. So how can credit unions transform communities while at the same time building the financial wealth of their members, the financial well-being of their members, while at the same time being sure that the institution is safe and strong and that members' money is protected in 28 different locations?
Yeah.
So therein lies the complexity and also the excitement of the work that's being done.
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting to hear about the lack of, or maybe the non-existence of structure to support data, to good quality data, maybe as something as simple as like how many people are even members. Just knowing like how much of our day-to-day is so reliant on good data, right? At the very least, who our members are and how many members we have, but not to mention, everything else that goes into our decision making and our planning. And so that's an interesting outcome that comes of a training academy like this, and the support that it can give to the whole movement on the continent. So
Yeah.
interesting.
Ben, I always think too, when I first started traveling, and Lois hit on it with the regulators and this push for additional regulation and training with regulators and co-training with regulators, it's so different than kind of the language here, where there's so much regulation that credit unions talk about, that regulation and the impact on, maybe the time it takes us to do a mortgage lending, where SACCOs in Africa are asking for regulation for that stability, right? So I always think it's really interesting to see that, and the work that they're doing in Africa to bring that regulation and recognition of the importance of that. And I think that that's one of those things that stood out so much to me when we started having these conversations, just some of those differences, right? And it's a very different side of the coin that we have with our regulators or conversations, and that education component on the why for Climb Africa. And I think Lois does so much good work there with ACCOSCA, and ACCOSCA is doing so much good work. And as I talked in the beginning too about professional development, conversations around professional development for us is just recognition, and our staff of just that desire to grow and that desire to learn, and all the tools that we have accessible to implement that kind of drive and that investment in our employees. And so for me, Climb Africa, that why is the development of this academy, and then also that online learning platform where the SACCOs in Africa will be able to look at those resources and provide that to their employees. And we talk about, we're, as an institution, we're only as good as our employees. And so the stability of professional development that will bring to their members by investing in their employees at those SACCOs is just going to be really amazing too. So I think that why component is what really speaks to me, in addition to all the very amazing things that are going to come with it that Lois talked about too.
Yeah, that's amazing. And maybe a good moment for us to pause and appreciate what we have when it comes to professional development, and the focus that we have on talent and our people, and maybe something that we forget as we get stuck in our day-to-day, and how that really does affect our members, right? Like, we have great people on our team that are trained and continually developed, and that's great for us, but really that end benefit does come to the members and to our communities. And to see that trying to be grown in another place in the world is just awesome. That's amazing. So we talked a little bit about regulation, how this might be one of the developments of or one of the outcomes when all is said and done here. What's happening right now, or what does it look like without this structure and with this regulation in place? Like what's going on that is making these people say, hey, this is the thing we need, and we also need like help and structure, and maybe this academy to help us pull this thing off?
So if you think about the fact that in the US and in most developed countries around the world, if you put money in a credit union, it's relatively safe. If you think about the idea that we have insurance that covers $250,000 of our savings, and we know that that money is there and it's safe. There are very few movements across the continent of Africa that have deposit guarantee, they call it DGS, deposit guarantee scheme, that really says all of our members' money is protected. If you look at even those that have the best deposit guarantee system, they may have 50% of their money actually being protected. So if you look about that and you recognize that first and foremost, we have to protect the savings of members. It's one thing to protect wealthy members who also need their savings protected. But when you have your entire life invested in an institution and it fails and your money is gone, that has a tremendous impact on individuals and the SACCO movement as a whole. So the idea for me, first and foremost, regulation has to happen to ensure that members' money is protected and the reputation of SACCOs is also protected. If a credit union in Kenya fails, it has an impact on the entire movement there. So first and foremost, we have to make sure that members' money is safe, that they're running strong financial institutions with a business strategy that works for members. So if the outcome of the academy, first and foremost, is that, then we've been successful and we've succeeded. Those that are most looking towards regulation and legislation towards this are running really good credit unions. They want the credibility that comes from being regulated to really help their institutions grow. The ones that are less confident, we have to work with them for them to also see the benefits of being regulated and also to recognize the value in building really strong and safe institutions.
Yeah. For those that maybe aren't quite on board yet, I imagine there's a bit of trust building, or what other challenges need to be overcome to get them on the same page as some of those bigger or more stable institutions.
Katy, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
No, I mean, I think I was thinking more along the lines when Ben had asked, like, things that are already being done was kind of really where I was doing. I think Ben, yes, I can speak to some of this. I think Lois probably has deeper insight, right? So, I think that there's definitely trust building, but I also think that there's the development also is all the way back to, what is a good board makeup? What does a board governance look like? Board involvement versus operational and management involvement. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of layers to that, Ben. So it is trust, but it is also sometimes conversational around those credit unions that may not be as stable. It's not just probably one piece that's making that, it might be linked to leadership. It might be linked to governance. So it's hard to say with one organization what it looks like, but it is usually multiple different facets of what might be causing that. I don't know, Lois.
No, that makes perfect sense, because there is so many levels of sophistication in the African movement. We have very sophisticated credit unions across the continent with state-of-the-art data systems, with state-of-the-art protection systems, with products and services that are ahead of us. Mm-hmm. So the challenge is matching those SACCOs with those that are developing and have less sophistication. So it's finding that common ground through ACCOSCA to continue to provide value to the really sophisticated credit unions, but at the same time help the others grow to a point where regulation is something they really seek and will benefit from. Part of it also is growing the regulators. And we have solid, strong, wonderful people that are regulators across the continent, but it's building a level of, if you would say, prudential standards, for example. And I'm not speaking from ACCOSCA, I'm speaking of my many years doing development work and recognizing that prudential standards that are uniform across the continent is going to help everybody grow together collectively. Mm-hmm. So, for example, you cannot say that the standard for capital adequacy is this in this country and this in this country. Of course you can, but ideally it should be the same throughout the continent. And that's where the joy of ACCOSCA comes in, because they're the convener of regulators that can have this conversation about things like prudential standards. and prudential norms.
And Ben, I think that that's another really key component of Climb Africa, right? So we've talked a lot about the academy, but it's also the ACCOSCA space. So ACCOSCA, one of the things that ACCOSCA does do, and I believe they're quarterly, right? Lois, is the regulator roundtables. So ACCOSCA is facilitating really phenomenal conversations around what Lois was just talking about on those standards on a quarterly basis with the regulators. And there's components to it. They travel across the continent, obviously, because they do serve all 28 countries that are involved in ACCOSCA. But so it's not always in Kenya. But if it is hosted in Kenya, it's always been off-site, because the facility and the location that ACCOSCA was at prior to this initiative wasn't conducive to hosting these roundtables. So it was off-sites at hotels. And so there's Climb Africa, in addition to building this academy, now has a space and a location that they can actually facilitate these conversations that they have been having. So it will be able to really enhance the things that they've been doing. So it's not that there hasn't been the work being done, and Climb Africa is going to start all the work. It was really going to help them enhance what they've been doing, and have a location that they can do so, and build out an online platform that allows them to reach an entire continent. So I think, those enhancements are a really key piece of this Climb Africa initiative.
Yeah.
So, and we're busy. We're building.
It's so complex.
Curriculum. We're building out, I think for the first time that I'm aware of, I could be wrong, but financial coaching modules and certifications, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So credit unions will have the opportunity to help their members for the first time start to think about talking about money. Yeah. And recognizing how to prepare for retirement, how to start to save, how to not spend everything you earn. How do you plan for the future? So the academy is going to start to tackle those things that are needs across the continent that have not been addressed in the past in a way that's productive and fun, and will bring, we use a facilitated training style at ACCOSCA that is very, very hands-on. We don't do any rote learning. Everything is done through participatory and experiential training techniques, so that it's people are learning. We're learning. Yeah. We're learning as much as they are about things that seemed so different where we are, and we realize, no, they're pretty much the same.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. As you're speaking, I'm, some of these things between certifications, financial education, these are things that exist, and maybe we have, structure, resources in place for it to be a bit more active here in the States. But at the same time, we also know that there's plenty of members and people here in our own country that, need this same stuff. So it's interesting to hear the dynamic between where we are in Africa, and how, like you just said, Lois, at the end of the day, a lot of it is the same. It's just maybe where we're at on that journey.
It's interesting you say that. So in my former role, it's been 25 years ago, I ran a project in the Southern Philippines for the World Council. And when I went off on this journey, I went there and I could see development issues everywhere. If you think of inadequate housing, if you think about hunger, you think about transportation issues, you think about access to financial services, all of these things are called development issues, as you know from DE.
Right.
When I came back from the Philippines, I went, oh my God, those same issues are all across America. How did I not see that before? And so when I personally do work with my African counterparts, I will talk about global development and help them recognize this isn't just Africa. Mm-hmm. These are issues that are facing our entire global system. In Great Britain right now, they call it eat or heat, because they know people right now are really struggling. The low wage working families are really struggling with it. Do I buy groceries, or am I going to have money to pay for heat? So it's recognizing those issues that are happening globally are also something we can have an impact right here in the US. So if you think about why support this whole initiative, it's because there is benefit in what you're learning in Africa to help members right here in the United States build their quality and their financial lives, because we can take the lessons we're learning here and apply it right here in the States.
Yeah. I think I don't remember who we were talking about it on a climb call, and it was, why would a US credit union, when we're talking about that, why would a US credit union get involved to support this project? And I think that's the key right there that Lois said, for all of us that have I say fortunate, I'm thankful every day that I've had the fortunate opportunity to travel there, and I come back knowing more about the way credit unions function. I feel like I come back, it is collaboration. I learn, I think, far more than I contribute. And it's eye-opening to just see how you have maybe a perception and you go, and then you realize that the entire country of Kenya, and it extends into Uganda and Eastern Africa, has an entire mobile payment system, and everybody functions on a mobile payment system, where here in the US we've struggled to get that to get off the ground, so it's very interesting to see different elements in different parts of the continent. In the Gambia, they have a completely shared branch network. Every one of their credit unions functions on the same core platform. Like, imagine what we could do to serve our members if something like that existed, so I think that why is anyone who has interacted with any of the credit union professionals or SACCO professionals in Africa comes back learning tenfold. And we bring that all back to our credit unions. And ultimately, the credit union movement is international, right? It's a global movement, and we are stronger when that movement across the globe is stronger. So I think that has really been one of those things that has been a strong why as to this being awesome.
Yeah, well said. And one of the ancillary benefits of this project that might seem super localized around this big mountain in Africa, right?
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about the mountain.
Yeah, right.
We haven't talked about that yet.
I was just going to say, I think I'm one question into my list of questions, so I better get us moving along here. So to that point, Lois, you mentioned at the beginning of the show, we talked about this big chunk of money, right? 1.2 million. And I can imagine that what those dollars will do, impacting people's lives is virtually immeasurable, in dollars. So can you talk a bit about how did you come to $1.2 million, and what is this doing? Is this building the building, or is there additional stuff that's happening with the funds generated here?
So we came up with this number through, it took us a while to really think it through. And part of it is recognizing when ACCOSCA bought the new office space, which is a condo in a high-rise building, we recognized they had a mortgage, and that's something we're trying to take care of. They used all of their institutional reserves to put it into this building, which means that can make liquidity tight. So we want to pay off the mortgage first and foremost. The second piece of this is building out the environment within that space that is highly professional, that is highly warm, that when a donor, a potential donor, or a government official comes into that office, it screams professionalism. It really does say that this is an organization that is progressive and is because it's very, very modern in the approach we took when it was actually built out. So if you look at it from that perspective, we're also looking at building solid curriculum that has to weather 28 different countries.
Yeah.
And we're getting some nice support, and I'm not at liberty to say until I think they release it, from an organization that is helping us build out a lot of work around underwriting of loans, for example. We have a colleague of mine, Mark Lynch, who is been contracted to write out the financial coaching piece. So what ACCOSCA is doing very deliberately and carefully is saying, yeah, there's all this content out in the world, and we have many of you willing to just throw this content at us. That is not what we need. We need solid content that is Africanized, that it meets the needs of Africans, that has African pictures, so there is a whole process that needs to happen to make sure that the content is effective, relevant, and will be easily adapted. The first, then, and the next piece, as we talked about, is the Research Institute.
Right.
So if you combine all of that and a cushion to make sure that we've got enough, the number is 1.2. We have right now a bit over half of that. So we have been successful, and we've gotten wonderful support from the US credit union system, $125,000, for example, from CUNA Mutual, which is, was really, and we've gotten 50,000 from 3 credit unions. Help me, Katy, Schools First Credit Union, Coastal Credit Union, and Government Employees Credit Union from North Carolina. And then we've got smaller donations, one from right in Wisconsin, my own credit union. Summit Credit Union has committed 20,000 towards this effort. So and this is a one-time ask.
Yeah.
So we're not coming back next year and the year after and the year after. This is a one-time ask.
Well, I think it's also important to recognize that there's some really great support on the continent of Africa too.
Oh, thank you.
You know, the Kenyan National Police SACCO has 60,000, I believe, and all of this is in US dollars. So in Kenyan shillings, that's a substantial difference. Lois, help me with that conversion. I know it's
so the 60,000 is about 600,000 shillings.
Yeah.
And then we have gotten really nice support. Initially, we said we wanted to raise about 60% from off the continent and about 40% from the continent. We're going to we've gotten wonderful support from African credit unions and national associations. So I'm comfortable we'll get the support we need from Africa.
Yeah. And
So,
I think it speaks volumes that way, right? To have that support on the continent, as well as there's that value and that investment in it as well. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, no, that's okay. So, yeah, I mean, amazing to hear the people that have come together, the organizations that have come together to support this thing. And, you know, I think clearly there's proof that you've put time into the complexities of this thing and being able to answer the why, you know, and like why this is really important to Africa, to the global credit union movement, and important to credit unions, you know, right here at home in the US, in Wisconsin. So, you know, clearly lots of peoples and partners to pull off something of this scale. We probably don't have time to list them all, but who have been some of the key people or organizations that have, you know, really made this thing real?
Well, the first 3 that we mentioned, if we look from the US, we also have support from PSCU. We've had support from University Federal Credit Union. We're getting support from other credit unions across the US that their name isn't on the ledger yet, but we expect it to be. Yeah. We also have a team. So if we could, I'll quickly divert us just quickly for this whole idea of Climb Africa. So Climb Africa is a whole year's effort. But what's coming up in October is the climb team that will be climbing Kilimanjaro to raise awareness of the importance of the African credit union system to the global movement. The other piece of it is a ground team is going to be working at a school for the blind called Salima, Malawi, to actually shore up poor infrastructures. They're going to actually go in with paintbrushes, and they're going to go in and build a mural, paint a mural across with the kids' hands and stuff. The value in doing that is from the foundation's perspective, as chair of the African Cooperative Development Foundation, that is kind of the lead group of all of this, is that we want to bring awareness through the climb. We want to bring the values that our foundation has in serving and building communities through the ground team. Mm-hmm. So we have, I think 16 Americans are coming with others. We have Canadians, we have others that are coming. For the ground team, we have another, I think 12 of us that will be doing the climb team. Mm-hmm. So we have a pretty good delegation of US folks coming to Africa. One of the things, a good example of why this all makes sense is Tony Baudet, who is the current chair of CUNA. He is also the president and CEO of University Federal Credit Union in Austin, was just with us in Eswatini at the Congress. And he said it was the highlight of his professional career.
Hmm.
So if you think about you're coming to teach, you're coming to share and to learn.
Mhm.
And that's what we expect to happen from both the climb team and the ground teams.
Yeah.
Am I on track, Katy?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think that's a really, really important piece to share in this. I think the other piece to share that's really, when you think about those numbers, there's a commitment, there's a level of commitment. So our ground team, in addition to support Ben, right, other SACCOs, other credit unions, system sponsors, each of the climbers are committing to fundraise $5,000. And the best part, right, as climbers, the climb itself is a commitment on our own. So the climb is at our cost as a climber, and the 5,000 that I raise all goes directly to the ACCOSCA Academy. The ground team is raising 2,500. So that will raise a really good chunk towards Climb Africa, but it also really looks at that outreach, right? So for me, my outreach is a lot of my friends and family and colleagues at Simplicity that I nudge and I'm like, hey, want to support this? But all of that money goes to the Academy. So that reach of donors far spans outside necessarily just the credit union movement. And so that's really fantastic. We've had a lot of really good work. Lois, as Lois said, Lois is a volunteer, right? She's a co-founder of CU Difference, but volunteers her time. And outside of Climb Africa, there's a great deal of time. But Mark Lynch with CU Difference and Angela Cassell with CU Difference, both of them are donating in kind gifts. So we have ground crew donors that are bringing items for the school in Salima. We have, as you know, Ben, like I've been sending lots of emails, right? Like exclamation which is part of Simplicity donated. Well, you donated your time and creation of the amazing logo that we have. So I think the outreach that Lois was talking about and I think we can't even put a number to really the sheer number of people that have just become familiar with this thing that we talk about, Climb Africa.
We love so much.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, and what's not to love? It's a really cool effort. Obviously, an amazing cause behind it. You both are on the climb team. We need to make sure to make some time to talk a bit about Kilimanjaro, the climb itself. Like, what's this thing going to be like? How are you feeling?
So it's my second time to do this. And so I know what I'm up against. And I will tell you, so first and foremost, Africa is the highest freestanding mountain in the world. So people don't recognize that. The summit is 19,340 feet. And I had friends here last night supporting this effort and they said, but there's oxygen, right? And it's like, no, there's no oxygen up there. You're doing this out of sheer will. And honestly, the climb is a nice climb until we get to the summit. And the summit will start at about between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning. It's cold, it's dark, and it's slow. It's one step in front of you.
Poly.
So it's going to take a tremendous amount of discipline and physical strength, as well as mental strength, for us to get our entire 18-person climb team to the top.
Yeah.
So Katy,
I think the mental, I know that Lois knows what to prepare for. One of our climbers, Randy, sent out a video of the route that we're doing and what to expect. And I started watching the video, and the first probably 20 of the 30 minutes of the video, I was feeling like, oh, right, I feel really good about this. Like, that looks great. The trail, like, yes, there's roots, but I can do this. And then it got to the summit day, and I realized that all the physical training I've done will help me get to summit day, and the rest of it will all be mental. And so I think there is of the 18 of us, there is a good chunk of us that know each other. There's some people that I don't know, but I have no doubt that like that support and that cheering of each other going up the mountain, and as I said, pole pole is slow in Swahili. That's going to be the key. And it's just really truly going to be that mental game. And you can train, and you can, I mean, I keep saying, like, I'm training in Wisconsin where there's no altitude. So I don't really know what to expect, or Florida, right, Lois? Like I'm even lower. But yeah, so, I've been jumping on my spin bike with a mask, wearing an N95, just to like see what that's like, just to try to prepare. But really the recognition is that it's going to be mental, and it's also going to be the fact that we have 18 people championing each other for a really amazing cause. And I think that's what's going to get us to summit.
So recognizing I was hallucinating on the first trip. Absolutely hallucinating. I thought the sky was on my head, and I kept trying to push it off my head until the guide said, "What are you doing?" It was like, nothing, I'm fine. Because if there is any indication at all you're struggling, they'll bring you down.
Sure.
So we'll see this time whether, I mean, the last trip I did, people were throwing up, and I mean, so it's not easy. And I think that 18 people willing to commit to something that we understand isn't going to be easy talks to the level of commitment that we have for doing this for Africa and doing this for credit unions. So we're going to be sending pictures as long as we can.
Right.
Because we'll eventually lose the ability to send stuff back, and we'll be capturing as much as we can. But and one thing that I think is really critical is when you get to the top, you come down, rest for 2 hours, and you start down the same day.
Sure.
So the physical exhaustion from the summit isn't enough. They're going to punish you more by sending you further.
Yeah. Maybe not literally. Maybe not literally, but this is definitely one of those uphill both ways sort of situations. Like neither way is easy.
Because it's harder to come down than go up at the end, because you're already exhausted.
Right. And
your legs are not used to that. They're used to climbing up. You climb stairs, but coming down is.
Yeah.
The exciting part is, because we wanted Climb Africa to be about awareness and about the love of community, is our ground team will be meeting us on the mountain. So they will start the climb toward us on our last day as we're coming down, and we'll meet as far as they get, and we'll all come off the mountain together.
Awesome.
There will be champagne, because right now everything is dry. None of us are drinking alcohol of any kind, beer, no wine, until we get through.
Yeah, a month. No wine or beer a month prior to the climb. So
yeah, I'm sure it will be worth it.
About that. For me, I like my wine, so this is like, oh.
Yeah. Wow, that'll be the best tasting champagne you'll have, I'm sure.
Yeah. And thankfully, Lois built in like a day of rest in the agenda for us. So
yeah, good.
Be good.
Smart.
Yeah.
Well, last call, anything that we missed, or anyone that might be listening, is there anything else that you'd like people to know, or what can they do? How can they support?
Yes, I would like to say that we have a wonderful website that allows you to make contributions to any of the climbers, including our African friends.
Yep.
And I think we could probably put the link at the end, because it's very long. But we really invite you to go out and look at this. You can also do a virtual ground or a virtual climb team. If you're a virtual climb team, you have to raise $1,000 and walk 19,340 steps a day for the time we're on the mountain. If you're a virtual ground team, we need you to raise $500 and do some type of project. For example, my yoga ladies, my yoga friends from my neighborhood, just raised $600 for the climb, and their project is going to be to solicit books from the neighbors to bring back to one of the libraries that we're supporting. So this is history making. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to help change a continent. We're also looking for the school in Salima, things like flip-flops. Kids don't have shoes. We're looking for things like t-shirts. We're looking for blankets. We're looking for those really basic items So if you have and you're willing to provide, we carry this stuff in suitcases back to the continent. It might not go this trip, but it will eventually get to the children that really need access to these goods.
Yeah.
Katie.
No, I was just going to say, I know that Ben will add links. I absolutely think it's super important. Go out there, you can support Lois, you can support obviously myself, help me get to my 5,000.
You're
but also
$940 short. So come on, people.
I'm almost there. But also know, like, all of the money donated gets directly given to ACCOSCA. When you give to a foundation, overhead costs usually come out. What does that look like? So AACUC, the donation goes through their site. It's getting sent directly to ACCOSCA. It's been amazing. And so for any donors in the US, it is tax deductible. And if you itemize, add it to your donations. So I think that, for people that are giving, that does matter. Where does those dollars go? How much of my dollar goes? So, that 100%
directly goes to this effort. It's not going to pay for operations. It directly goes.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, that's super important. Well, hopefully our audience gives you just that last little boost to at least hit your goal, Katy, but then of course support the overall cause for sure. So, okay, before we wrap, we have to go into our Something Awesome segment where we share recommendations for things we've done, books we've read, podcasts we're listening to, things that are just awesome that we want to share with the world. And in tradition, I'll kick us off. I'm going to be sharing a link with all of the other links that we've talked about today to the Climb Africa page and other information that'll help people learn more about the effort and the Academy. But the link that I'll be sharing this is totally unrelated to Climb Africa. I'm so sorry that I didn't do anything, but I saw this awesome article about a school that did these really funny carpool line signs. So I'm totally in back to school mode right now, dropping off my son at school occasionally throughout the week. And, there's just no perfect system to do that at whatever school you're at. And clearly the school that made these creative signs to tell people where they can and can't park and what to do with their children and stuff just brought like a level of humor to it that I thought, like, first off, we just need more of in our world right now anyways, right? The ability to laugh at a process that just is never going to be perfectly awesome, but might as well enjoy yourself and have a chuckle while you're there. So I won't say more. We'll share the link. You just got to check out the images. There's some really good ones that are also very nostalgic. Clearly whoever designed these signs was like born in the 80s or something, because they like all the same things that I liked, like Friends and MC Hammer and stuff like that. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good one. So check out the link there. Lois or Katy, anything awesome to share?
Go ahead, Lois.
Okay, I'll say two things. I'll recommend a book and I'll also say something awesome. Last week in Eswatini, I have met a future queen, but I've never met a king. And I had the opportunity to shake hands and meet the king of Eswatini. So when you say we're going to the kingdom, it's the kingdom of Eswatini when you go to this country. So who can say, and I also met the prime minister and the deputy prime minister on the same day. So that's a pretty big day.
That's cool.
For someone visiting a country. The book I'd like to recommend is a book called Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. It's not as much fun as Signs for the School Lines. But it's a book that I've read for many, many years. It's all the old Lao Tzu teachings from the 2500 BC as told by Wayne Dyer. And it's a really practical guide to how do you live your life. So think about change your thinking, change your life. Or it might be change your thoughts, change your life, something to that effect.
Okay, we'll get the exact title and we'll share the link to that book recommendation as well. Awesome.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Lois.
So mine's
Katy?
totally different. Obviously I'm a yes and love adventure and travel and going. And so my awesome is that I get to see that in my crazy boys. So I have two boys, they're 8 and they're 11, almost 12. And in the last couple of weeks, they have, in my training for Kilimanjaro, gone trail riding on mountain bikes, including some wipeouts on some hills and routes. And they just bounced up and kept going with me. And then my littlest son and my older son double water skied as I pulled him behind a boat this past weekend. And then I double slalomed with my oldest son behind the boat. So my awesome is that I just love seeing their excitement for adventure and activities and doing all the crazy things with me. So I have two small humans that are as crazy as I am, and that's what I wanted to celebrate is awesome.
Well done.
But if that's good or bad, actually, I don't know.
That's good.
Gotta be good, Katy. Come on.
Yeah. So
that's awesome. Great. Thank you both for sharing. I don't know, Katy, maybe we can get a link to like a video of double slalom water skiing or something. That might be kind of cool to share. But if not, I guess people just have to imagine. But
I do have video, of course. So I will share my boys.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, gosh, this went so fast. Thank you both so much for the time being here today and for everything that you're doing. Best of luck. We'll be thinking about you, praying, knocking on all the wood, crossing fingers, doing everything that we can to make sure that the trip goes well and the climb goes well. Really appreciate you taking time out to tell the story and share what you're doing. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much. It was great fun.
You bet. Reminder for our audience, we'll share links to everything that we promised. We'll share links to today. And if you're listening to this on our website, you can find us on your favorite podcast app. Or if you're listening to us on your podcast app, you can check us out at exclamationqso.com/blog to listen to all of our episodes. Thank you again, Lois and Katy, for being here. Thank you, friends, for tuning in. This has been one of your self-proclaimed professors of awesomology, reminding you that life's awesome if you make it awesome. We'll see you next time.